Hi, my name is Alejandro Seguera, and I will be presenting for the Political Polarization group. First, I'll discuss the motivation for our project. We were inspired by the state of American politics after the 2016 election. For a lot of us here at Berkeley, the country feels polarized, but it's tough to put a number on this feeling. We wanted a concrete way to quantify it. So if we look at this slide, we can see two measures of how polarization has changed over time in the US. On the left, we have graphs of ideological consistency for our representatives in Congress, and on the right, we have similar ideological consistency graphs, but for just your average American citizen. In both graphs, we can see a dwindling of the center. It seems very clear that in some way, the Democrats and Republicans in our country have been drifting away from each other in terms of ideological views, but we were searching for a specific way to comment on that change. Onto our methodology, we started with an analysis of our representatives. So we first started looking at DW nominate scores. These are scores that attempt to quantify the ideological consistency of a representative based on voting record. They assign every representative two values from -1 to 1, an X value, which represents how liberal or conservative they are in the classical sense, and a Y value. This Y value is supposed to account for historical differences within, for example, the Democratic and Republican parties. So we started out by looking at these distributions for each Congress over time. And we found that a useful tool might be principal component analysis. So principal component analysis allows you to derive a measure for the axis of greatest variation in a distribution. So if you look at the two differently colored distributions on the graph below, we can see that the axis of greatest variation seems to be diagonal up and to the right. So by using principal component analysis, we keyed in a little bit onto an intuition for the structure of political parties in Congress. Because a political party that varies most diagonally on this graph of DW nominate scores would be vastly different from a political party that varies most horizontally. Our methodology continued with an analysis of bills. So one of our biggest goals with this project was to be able to assign a polarization score for any particular bill. So we took the DW nominate values of all of the representatives who might have voted on a bill and used this to come up with a two-dimensional representation of polarization. This allowed us to generate a distribution of bills for each Congress. Now, we weren't able to crunch through as many numbers as we would have liked to analyze the polarization scores of bills over as many years as we would have liked to, but we feel that we have developed a pipeline, so to speak, of taking any bill, looking at the structure of the representatives who voted on it, and then from that structure, deriving a measure of not only the extent to which a bill is polarized, but the dimension along which a bill is polarized. We feel that this is significant because what our country's dialogue has been missing, our country's dialogue on polarization, is a specificity to polarization. We talk a lot about the extent to which a vote is polarized, the extent to which our Congress is polarized, but we never talk about the ways in which these things are polarized. With our bill analysis, we are able to distinguish between two bills which by all means are highly polarized by talking about the ways in which they are polarized, whether they are polarized across the typical party line or a different axis that might have absolutely no bearing on party line. We feel that this is a significant contribution to our country's ability to discuss politics.